Hello students. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for becoming a student of boards. You are going to represent yourself and your school in the board examination. So, best of luck. Today, I will discuss your English paper. You are having two books in 10th. The first one is First Flight and the second one is Footprints Without Feet. And today we will discuss the first chapter of First Flight. And the title of this chapter is A Letter to God written by G.L.Fuentes. Let's move to the story. The characters of this story are Lancho, the protagonist, his wife, his kids, a postmaster, and employees of the post office. And yes, the God, the Almighty God. Before starting the chapter, I would like to ask a question. If I put you in a situation where there is no one to help you out, then whom you will remember? Suppose your family is not there, your friends are not there, then obviously you will pray to God. That means if there is no hope, there is hope of God. And this is a story based on the faith in God. There can be so many themes of a story, and through this story, even there are many themes. This can be a representation of the life of a farmer, struggle of a farmer, and it can be a contrast between humanity and God, because someone is writing a letter to God. What was the need and why he chose God only, not human beings? So it can be a contrast also. The story starts with the main protagonist. Protagonist, that is the main character of the story, Lancho. Lancho is a farmer and he was residing with his family on the top of a hill, and his house was the only house in the entire valley. No one was there with him, and from that height they were able to see the river and the field of ripe corn, dotted with the flowers that promised a good harvest. But his fields needed downpour, the rain, a good rain. And throughout the day, Lancho was doing nothing but staring at the sky, and he was in hope of good rain. He was talking with his wife. Now we are really going to get some water, women. This line shows that he is very optimistic, a person who always keep faith, keep patience and have hope in their life. And his wife replied, yes, God's willing. Yes, because God is there. If he would say, the nature will favor, because God is there to help us. And she was preparing the supper. Supper, that is the dinner for the night. And the kids were busy in their work. The older boys were working in the field and smaller ones were playing in the house. And they were called for the dinner. It was the meal time, and all were engaged in taking the supper, but Lancho was predicting, imagining for the good rain. Big drops of rain began to fall. It seems like dreams come true. A good rain was the dream of Lancho, and he was aware with the situation of his fields. because his fields needed water. Northeast huge mountains of cloud could be seen approaching, and the air was fresh and sweet. The man went outside to see that why it had approached. It means it's a good sign of rain, and the pleasure of feeling came in their minds, in their hearts. And it started raining soon. They all became very blissful and they started enjoying the rain, and they compared the raindrops with coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives. They all become very satisfied because these coins are going to provide them good harvest. They proved that the raindrops proved that Lancho would get good crops this year and he would be able to fulfill the appetite of his family. And with satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flower draped in a curtain of rain. First, he used these lines of ripe corn with its flower draped in a curtain of rain. Means first, his flowers was covered with water, which was a good sign of good harvest. But his happiness was short-lived. What was the reason? Why it was short-lived? Suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. This was the reason why the happiness was short-lived. In the beginning, they were not despair, and they compared the hailstone with silver coins. Resembles the silver coins, and the kids exposed themselves to the rain and ran out to collect the frozen pearls. But after some time, it was getting bad. Worst, Lancho exclaimed. I hope it passes quickly. He was in hope that the hailstones are not going to destroy my crops, but it did not pass quickly. And for an hour the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. Earlier it was covered with water, which was a symbol of good harvest, but then it seems like it was covered with salt due to the large hailstones. And the hillside, the house, the cornfield became destroyed. Not a leaf remained on the trees. Nothing was left. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Earlier, the flowers were flourishing the whole cornfield, but flowers were gone. Lancho's soul was filled with sadness. If there is nothing left, what was the reason of happiness? Nothing. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his son, you can see that Lancho is in great despair and looking towards his fields. And he told his son a plague of locusts would have left something more than this. Means some insects are there who used to visit the corn fields. They would have left something, but the hailstones had not left anything. And this year they would starve. They would stay in hunger, and they didn't have corn. And that night was the sorrowful one for Lancho and for his family. All his work went in vain. Whatever he did with his field went in vain. He was not going to get good rain. He was not going to get good crops because all his crops were destroyed due to the large hailstones. And he exclaimed, "There is no one who can help us. We will all go hungry this year." As Lancho had nothing to give his family, he became despaired, disheartened, and he started saying to himself that no one is there to help. And this year, Lancho, along with his family, would suffer and would go hungry. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. This line shows that wherever we live, alone or with other people, God is everywhere and He is watching, and there is only single hope: the help of God. So he consoled himself, "Don't be upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger." This line shows that Lancho was very optimistic. He was always in hope of good things. Yes, that's what they say: no one dies of hunger. And throughout the whole night, he was thinking about the help, and only one help came into his mind: that is, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything. Means God is everywhere. He is not physically present, but He is watching all the activities of the human. And He must be watching that what had happened with the fields of Lancho. And Lancho had nothing to give. Lancho had nothing to provide his family. And whatever going through in his mind, in his heart, the God is listening and He would be there to help him. Lancho was an ox of a man. This line has been used for Lancho because he was a strong man and he was working like an animal in the field. Ox of a man means a strong man who does hard labor. And he decided to write a letter. When he decided to write a letter, it means he knew how to write. It shows that Lancho was a bit educated. That's why he decided to write a letter. Yes. And he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. "God," he wrote, "if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pieces in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes because the hailstorm. Dot dot dot." And he expressed all his pain, all his problems in the letter. Peso, currency of several Latin American countries. And he wrote everything whatever in the mind he had. And this line shows that he was a firm believer of God. And he believed, he hoped only from the God, not from any friend, not from any human being. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled. He had to face trouble because he had to travel up to the town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. Can you can you see this? That he didn't know the address of God, but still he posted and dropped it into the mailbox? How crazy he was. Anyone could say that Lancho was a fanatic person, a mad person, but in other side, he is very innocent. He knows nothing except good things, except God. And he was a firm believer of God. That's why he put the letter to the God only. He didn't seek for the help of the human being. He didn't seek from any his relatives, from any his friends, but to the God. What happened then? Did he get the reply? Did he get the money which he had asked in the letter? Let's see in the part 2.